go scatter to west, right, tight, F left. 372 Y stick, Z spot.
Here we go. Scatter to west, right, tight, F left. 382 Y stick, 72.
Christ. Just go scatter to west, right, tight, F left.
Yeah.
372 Y stick, Z spot.
Here we go. Scattered. Say it again.
Scatter to west, right, tight, F left. 372 Y stick, Z spot.
Here we go. Scattered to
west, right, tight.
Scatter to west, right, tight, F left. 382. 372.
Y stick,
Y
Z
stick,
spot.
Z spot. I'm already.
Christ.
Welcome back to another episode of Coach Hates Football. Coach, if your practice sounds like that, you're not coaching football, you're coaching physics. If you want a couple of tips on how to make it easier for your players to understand, stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, now we're back. The very first thing you need to understand is the whys. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why are you coaching the things that you're coaching? Do your players understand the why? Think about it yourself. If you had a better understanding of why you're doing something, you'll give 100% more effort. If you're really unsure about what it is you want to do, you're not really giving 100% because you're constantly thinking about what it is need to be done. If you understand 100% why you're doing the things you're doing, well, guess what? Coaching is not that hard. Executing your plays is not that hard. So understand the whys. That's very important. That's the very first thing. Understand why you're coaching what you're coaching. Understand why you're calling it what you're calling it. Understand why you're doing what you're doing. And that way you can convey that to your players. Once they understand the whys, you'll understand why your plays run a lot smoother. Next, this is huge right here. Categorize. You must categorize your plays. It's very simple to categorize your plays because it makes it a lot easier for the kids to understand. If everything is like it's organization. If everything goes into a certain area, well, guess what? You know what it's for. All right. So creating your plays, all right, naming them is just as important as designing those plays. So when you naming those plays, make sure you put them all into a category. For example, if you want to do routes, all right, if you use everything off the passing tree, that's great. Okay. But if you start, maybe your routes may have, or maybe your plays may have fall into a certain name. Your run plays may be cars, and your pass plays may be colors. Who knows? Whatever you want to do, sky's the limit on that. But all I'm asking is be consistent. Give it a play name. Put them all in the same category. And that way, it makes it much easier for the players to understand. It makes it much easier for them to know what they're doing. And then that way, you're not spinning your wheels going back and forth trying to remember what's going on. All right? So for illustration purposes, I'm going to actually use our defensive line stunts and movements. All right? So our very first thing is, in our one-man movements, okay, what we typically do from our philosophy is we actually make the name. So whatever the name of that position is called, that's going to be your key to move. All right? So our big end, we just call big. He knows to make a gap exchange movement from the C gap into the B gap. All right. If we call tackle, then the defensive tackle, which is a 3 technique, knows to make a gap exchange from B gap to C gap. All right. If we go nose, all right, same thing. He's gonna gap exchange one gap. If he's lined up on the shade, we're telling him to gap exchange and go across to the other A gap. All right. Some people call that pop or whatever the case may be. Again, I'm talking about putting things in the categories. If we call adjust, because we call our rush in the adjuster. All right. If we say adjust, then that he knows to what? Gap exchange one gap inside. All right. So for illustration purposes, like I said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this up where I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. All right. If I call big, I just told you he's going to gap exchange into the inside gap. If I call tackle, he's going to gap exchange into the inside gap. If I call nose, he's going to one gap exchange. If I call adjust, one gap exchange. Very simple. Okay? Not a big deal. All right? But in order for me to get them to do that, I have to call each individual. I may just want one guy to move. So if I want one guy to move, I just call his position name. All right. So now we're into our 2-man. All right. So in our 2-man stunts, notice we have big tackle, nose adjust. Well, what if I want just a big and tackle to do that same movement? I'm going to call Banshee. If I want the nose and adjuster to do that movement, I'm going to call Apache. Word association. Banshee, B. Big inside. So that way, that's a two-man movement. All it is big and tackle put together. We call it Banshee. If I want to go into the adjuster side, I call Apache. All right? So if I want the Apache and the nose to do it, if I want the adjuster and the nose to do it, we call Apache. So notice what's happening here. Right? You see the arrows here. So if I want the big and tackle to do it, we call Apache. If I want the nose and adjuster to do it, if I want the big and tackle to do it, we call Banshee. And if I want the nose and the adjuster to do it, we call Apache. That eliminates a lot of verbiage, right? Now, bow and arrow. Notice what it is. Bow is a big end term because it starts with a B. Arrow is for the adjuster side because it starts with an A. All right? All that is a very simple twist. The three technique take care of B gap, and the big end wraps around. We call that bow. All right? On the other side, if we want the adjuster side to do it, we call it arrow. All right? On arrow, the nose goes through the B gap, the adjuster wraps around. Very simple. All right? That's how we get our inside twist done. If I want to go to outside twist, all right, we call it tomahawk and axe. Again, tomahawk because it deals with the three technique. Axe, it deals with the adjuster. All right? So now my Banshee my big end goes first. My three technique comes around to the C gap. On here, my adjuster goes first and my nose wraps around to the C gap. Very simple. How do we now get all four of those guys to do that in our four-man stunts? So if I want to go all four, if I want to do a Banshee and Apache, or check this out, if I even want to go big, tackle, nose, adjust, I take it to the next level and say what? Banshee, Apache. Well, if I want both sides to do it, now I just simply call Indian. All right? Indian means inside. Notice how it goes. The Apache Indians, I know Banshee is a ghost, but it's all the same thing. So screaming is all I deal with Indians. All right? So very simple. I just created my Banshee. Just created my Apache. If I want them both together, that's how we go Indian. All right? Cuts down on the verbiage, but as you see, it's a progression and it grows into something. Okay? Next, bow and arrow. We know what bow and arrow is. If I want both sides to do the bow and arrow, if I want the big end side to do the twist, and I want the adjuster side to do the twist, I simply call shoot. Why do I call shoot? Because when I teach it, what does a bow and arrow do? It shoots. All right? So, same concept, right? Together, we have shoot. So, as you see how we start building it. You build a foundation and you work your way up from there. And our last one, tomahawk and axe. What does a tomahawk do? What does an axe do? It chops. So if I want to do my tomahawk and axe stunt, I go chop. Big inside. So we want the tomahawk. He goes first. He's second. He's first. He's second. Put them together. We chop. Okay? So again, very simple, very easy way to build up and categorize your plays. It's easy for the players to understand. It's easy for them to get it. And again, you also use keywords to help them remember. What does a bow and arrow do? Oh, that's right, coach. It shoots. What does a tomahawk, what does an axe do? They chop. So when you hear the word chop, it's a tomahawk on one side. It's an axe on the other side. When you hear the word shoot, it's a bow on one side. It's an arrow on the other side. All right. Next, we're going to go into our organization. All right. This is super huge when you start talking about play calling and your structure. All right. You have to have a structure to your play calls. If you don't have a structure and your words are kind of scrambled and scattered all over, the players' ears do not perk up because they don't really know what they're listening to. All right. So when we first start off, okay, I'm going to start off here at the top with our defensive play call structure. Very first thing comes out is the strength call. where do we want to set the strength of the defense? Do we want to set it to the tight end? Do we want to set it to the field? Do we want to set it to the boundary? Maybe we want to set it to the running back. You know, you can do whatever you want to do, but that's the very first thing comes out from a play call structure on the defensive play call. Next is our front, okay? What comes out? And our front, again, back to categorizing. Categorize those things. They don't always have to be a 4-3. I know sometimes we go over and under and so forth. That's fine. If you want to use that as a category, I love it. Over, under, through, whatever that may be. If you want to use animal names, a bear front, a tiger front, a bird front, whatever that is, alligator front, that's fine. You can do that. But keep it consistent. That's huge. Next is variations. And variation is just very simply the small changes we want to give just to give it a different look. All right. We may be in a 3-4 look, but we want to bring maybe one linebacker up to give a different look, but we still playing our 3-4. All right. So we may call, let's say bear, Sam up or something like that. Whatever that is, keep it consistent. All right. Next is our stunts and movements. I just showed you previously how we categorize our stunts and movements. Keep that the same. They know that next thing going to come out is going to be a stunt or movement. After that comes blitz packaging. All right. Keep that consistent. Some people use colors for blitz. Some people use names for cars. Some people use, fruit. Some people use storms, whatever it may be. All right. If you're using a color, say orange. Orange may be an outside blitz. Silver may be the Sam blitz. White may be the Will blitz. Maroon may be the Mike blitz. However you want to categorize it, that's up to you, coach. Make sure you sit down, think about it, put some time, invest some time into it. But whatever it is, just keep it consistent. And then the last is coverage. All right. So in our coverage, most people typically use numbers, right? Cover 1, 2, 3, 4, so forth. But you may have tags that go along with that. So the tags need to be categorized. So in those tags, you may use NFL teams, right? You may want to say, the Dolphins. You may want to say, Giants. You may want to use Eagles. Whatever that is, you want to categorize those tags to help those players understand that. On the offensive side, right? So our offensive play structure call. Typically, the first thing comes out is want to be the personnel. Who do you want to have on the football field? Do you want to have 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 20 personnel? Whatever that is, if you want to use those numbers, that's great. By all means, please do so. But I've seen some people use the armed forces. They call, for example, the Marines, first one to go in. So that may be their 21 package, right? So then they go to the Army. That may be their 11 personnel. Then they go to the Air Force. That's their 10 personnel package. So whatever it is you want to use, please, by all means, do so. Again, I'm just saying, keep it consistent. Next, you want to go to the backfield. You want to identify what the backfield looks like. All right. So you want to give out the personnel and the formation. Okay. Then you want to give out to the backfield what that is. All right. Next, you want any motions or shifts. Put that in. Know that everything falls into a slot. Well, if you don't have a motion or shift, that's fine. You skip it. Again, because it falls into a certain category. If they don't hear it, they know it doesn't exist. Right. So if you use a motion or shift, say, for example, you may, use, again, I'm just using animals, for example. If you hear zebra, right, that may be for the Z going across, right? You may use X for, exit or something like that, whatever it is. If they don't hear that, they know to go on to the next piece. Next is the protection, right? You got to have your protection. Whatever you use for protection, put that in, all right? Then your play call, what it is you're trying to actually do. Is it a run play? Is it a pass play? Whatever those categories may be. All right. And then finally, your snap count. All right. So organization is huge. You got to make sure you have a structure to your play call. Next, installation. Guys, this is the biggest part of play calling. Once you've done all the background work with naming the plays, and all of that stuff, putting it down, how you're going to call it, all of that, that's huge. Now you have to install this. You got to remember, a lot of these players that you have, they're pretty new to football, or they haven't been around for a lot of time. As you saw in the clip earlier, that was the NFL, and that guy was super struggling. He getting paid millions of dollars to do this. So what do you think this 16, 17-year-old kid is going to do when you come out here and throw a bunch of verbiage at him, right? So you got to make it super simple. Very first thing you're going to do is introduction, okay? Now, you're going to see these numbers pop up, and I'm going to explain those in 1 second. Once you do the introduction, you want to let them know, again, the whys. Why are we doing this? All right? You want to have them understand the category, all right? You want them to understand what it is you're doing and why you're calling it, what category it falls in, all right? And you also want to have understanding of the structure. When you hear this in the play call, this is what's going to happen. Next are rules. You got to have rules when you're installing your plays. If you don't have rules, the kids have nothing to go by. Everything in this world has rules, right? So you want to make sure that you give them a structure of what it is they're supposed to be doing. If this happens, then you need to make sure you do that. If that happens, you need to make sure you do this. If, for example, you're a receiver and a quarterback, if that DB is playing you off 10 yards, then this should happen. If he's man pressed, then that should happen, okay? So that's very important. Next is progression. You want to constantly making sure that you are progressing. The players are progressing, right? Are they going to mess it up the first time? Yeah, probably so. But you want to make sure that they're not constantly messing up the same thing. They're constantly making progress when you're making your play call, right? So the very first time you do it, yeah, they may mess it up. But on the second time, they should not be making that same mistake. Because if they are, then guess what? There's a problem somewhere. There's a break in communication in some kind of way. And then lastly, execution. Execution is huge. If they're not executing this play, right, because they're confused, somewhere in those first 3 steps, something is missing. Something has gone wrong. Again, there's another break in communication. So you need to kind of go back through with a fine-tooth comb and find out what it is. Where's the break in communication? Where's the lack of information being given because they're not executing the play, all right? And this is what I simply call my 10-90 rule, all right? And I tell my coaches this all the time in the 10-90 rule. Notice 10% introduction. I want to spend 10% of the time just introducing the play to you, okay? I don't want to do what coach was doing. He's still calling the play. The player's messing it up. He's still calling this. He can't get it. He can't even get out the huddle because he has no idea what he's saying, right? And if he has no idea what he's saying, he's nervous. He's fumbling. He's stumbling. How is he going to execute the play? He can't even get out the huddle with the play call. All right. And then therefore that shows a lack of confidence in whoever the play caller is. So how are your players going to follow you? Because usually your play caller is your leader. And if your leader can't get it right, how are your followers going? How are your soldiers going to get it right? So in our 10-90 rule is very simple. If our players cannot get it in the first 10%, right, we're going to scrap the play automatically as a coaching staff. We're going to stop right there, stop coaching it, either go back to the drawing board and try and fix it, or we don't run that play at all. Because we want to spend the other 90% of the time teaching you the nuances of it. How can we get better? What happens if this? We want to spend our other 30% of the time teaching you the rules, 30% of the time teaching you how to progress and how to get better at that play, and the other 30% of the time making sure that we execute it correctly. So our 10-90 rule is huge, especially as a coaching staff, right? Because all that other work that we put in actually is in reverse. We put 90% of our time putting the play together and 10% just for the introduction. Well, on the flip side of that is, guess what? If a player can't get it in 10%, as a coach, guess what? We got to scrap it because we weren't efficient and we weren't effective in putting that play together for those players, okay? So, again, we want to make sure that we understand, are you coaching football or are you coaching physics? Our very first thing is the why. If you do not understand why you are doing what you're doing, then you and your staff need to stop coaching it immediately, scrap it for that practice, go back to the drawing board. If it's that important to you, reach out for some help, collaborate with some other coaches. Maybe if you guys, like I say, some college connections, make sure you reach out to those guys. Maybe they can help you understand the why. Because one thing about a player is if he does not understand why he's doing something, he can't give you 100%. He's only going to give you 50% because the other 50%, he's wondering what in the world he's doing, okay? Next is categorize. When creating your plays, you must name them. It's just as important as designing the plays. I know we love to write our X and O's on the board and we got the perfect play. But guess what? That play means nothing if the players can't understand what they're doing or even why they're doing it. All right. Next is our organization. You have to have a structure. You've done all the leg work. You understand why you're doing it. You understand now how you put it in a category, what it falls in. Now you have to organize that. Put it into a structure. Your play call must have some type of structure. And then finally, when you install it, super important. The 1090 rule is huge. I call it a 1090. Like I said, once we introduce it, and there's still a lot of confusion. Coach, what do I do on this? Coach, what does that mean? Coach, what does this call mean again? We're going to scrap it because we've done something wrong from our side of it. So we're going to scrap that play, especially in practice. When we have our coaches meeting, our staff meeting, after practice or whenever you have those, you need to really have a deep conversation about it. And is it worth it? Or you may have to just rework it a little bit to see what the deal is. Okay. And so with that, you have to make sure when you introduce, that's 10%. Your rules, setting the rules to those plays. All right. Especially our offensive line. Is he lined up, head up? Is he inside? Is he outside? Are you covered? Are you not covered? Who are you blocking? All those are rules, right? As we said, the receiver, the quarterback, if you get too high, if you get one high, what are the rules? As a defender, if it's 2x2, okay, I do this. If it's 3x1, do we change the play? Do we audible? Here are the rules to the play. These are the small nuances. This is not even getting to actually running the play. These are kind of pre-snap deals, all right? Next is progression. Are the kids constantly progressing as they're running the play? As you keep repping this play, do you see them getting better? Every rep, they should actually be getting better by a certain percentage, whether you want to mark that goal as 2%, 1%, 5%, 8%, 12%, whatever that is, you need to make sure that you set that. If they're getting stuck, that means they're not progressing. If it's constantly looking the same, there's a lack of communication. There's a communication breakdown. You need to stop right there, scrap it for that day, go back and find out where that lack is. And don't be afraid to talk to your players. Don't be afraid to ask them, hey, man, what happened? Why is it that you guys can't get over this hump? Because guess what? They're going to give you the honest opinion. And that way, maybe they saw something that you didn't see because they're actually in the fire. You sat behind your desk in the AC drawing these plays up, and they actually out there in the 90-degree heat trying to execute these plays. And then finally, execution. All right? As you're executing the play, you want to make sure that you spend 30% of the time making sure that they execute them correctly. All right? Making sure that the run fits are correct. Making sure that the blocking scheme is right. Making sure that they're double teaming. Make sure they're chip blocking. Whatever those different things are to make sure that the execution is right, you want to spend those 30%. All right? Coaches, I really hope that this helped you. Okay? It took me several years to truly understand this because, I used to kind of grab bag myself. You just call it a name and have an understanding. The best thing that ever happened to me as a football coach is I became a special education teacher. And when I became that special education teacher, I realized everybody doesn't think the same. Everybody doesn't think like you think, right? And guess what? Everybody doesn't have the experience that you have. These players typically don't have the experience that you have. So guess what? You have to make it easier for them. And so if your kid that is not functioning highly can get it, well, your 4.0 kid should be able to knock it out the park. And guess what he becomes? He becomes a coach on the field as well. So he can help out those other players that may be struggling with it, all right? Because always remember this, everybody learns different. And I have a real huge pet peeve, and I'm going to leave it at this. I can't stand when coaches say, oh, that player's dumb. Oh, that player can't learn. He's an idiot. No, you're the idiot because you're the coach. Coach is just another word for teacher. You must find a way to get that player to understand what's going on and execute. All right? That's no different than if your child was in the classroom and the teacher's calling him an idiot because he can't understand algebra. He doesn't understand why there are letters in math, right? That's the teacher's responsibility to get your child to understand that subject area. It is your responsibility as a coach to get your players to understand your play calls so they can execute and you have a great Friday or Saturday night. Again, thank you very much. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I got my little logo right over my head here. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to that. And again, see you on the $50 line.
Man, you got to get a cheat sheet or something. That's terrible. That'll kill us.